Hey, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Leadership Toolkit. My name is Mike Phillips, and I'm going to be hosting this podcast every Wednesday at 12:05 Mountain at 2:05 Eastern. The whole goal behind this podcast is to bring on leaders and managers and people of different experiences and different experience levels and wins and losses, successes and failures, to be able to share with you and grow you as a leader so you can help grow yourself, you can grow your team and the people around you. So the guest I have today, I'm going to bring a guest on each day. We're going to have a collaborative conversation. It's going to be real open-ended. I encourage you in the chat, if you're watching, please make sure, leave comments. I would love to participate. We'll answer questions and do those sorts of things as time goes on. And with that, I'm going to welcome today's guest, my good friend, Mat Koenig. He is the founder of Rockstar Designs. What's up, man? Matt and I have been friends for a long time. We've done a lot of shows together, had a lot of fun experiences. Matt is an absolutely phenomenal leader. He's a phenomenal coach. Part of the reason I'm doing this show is because Matt and I got involved in a discussion, and he says, man, you got to do the thing, because he knows I love it. So, just if we can, welcome, Matt.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it, Mike. And I'm stoked that you're doing the thing because you like that. This is always awesome, and I love seeing the engagement that people have when you've been doing live leadership shows and some of the podcasts that you've done, man. It's just a great opportunity, and I know I learn every time. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, brother.
Thank you. And the best part about hosting, shows and events like this is I learn too. Like there's lots of things, and we think back and go, oh man, gosh, yeah, I do that, or I did that, and I needed to learn about it. So. A couple things. I'm going to give you the screen here for just a second, and just give a brief background, kind of a history of who you are, what you're doing right now.
Right on. So little background on me. I've been working inside the automotive industry for 29 years. The first dozen of it was on the retail side of the business. And then the rest of it's been on the vendor side. I've had the privilege and honor of working in just about every role inside of a dealership. And then I had the honor of working with cars.com for 4 years and Edmunds for a couple of years after that to launch their direct-to-dealer program for them. And since about 2012, I've run my own company, Rockstar Designs. So some of the people that watch this show may be familiar from when I had hair and when we put on the Rockstar Auto conferences, myself and my good friend Chris Spear. And now I do about 45 coaching calls with dealers in the United States and Canada every month to help their leadership and help their salespeople grow their sales and build stronger relationships with customers. As a matter of fact, I head up next week to spend 4 days in Canada at a dealership there. So I'm really excited about that. And then, of course, I still own Rockstar Designs. So we have a really amazing service and system for dealers. That's a lead management system that allows them to set more appointments and sell more cars. So that's where I invest my time and energy business-wise. Then, of course, I'm married. I've got some great kids and stepkids, and my wife and I live in Tennessee. So we're really involved with our church family down here and just enjoying a peaceful life at the top of a mountain. So that's the rundown of who I am and what I'm doing now.
That's awesome, Matt. So one of the things that I love about you do have a bit of a unique perspective on, leadership. And when you and I get together, we always end up with conversations like you want to head one way and it's got to be all logical, right? Here's how leadership works and so forth. You're somebody that definitely leads very much from the heart and carries yourself through your faith. So that lends a unique perspective. You've been besides being a leader in business, you've certainly been a leader in the church and with your faith as well. So something that always brings great conversation about, I guess. So,
I think so too, man. And it's funny because a lot of the folks that know me, they would probably be like, wait, what, that last part? No, that's not the Matt that I know. So it's always fun, having folks see the life change that's happened. So I love that.
Absolutely. So before we get in specifically to the conversation today, because one of the keys, I go out and for the guests that I'm going to bring on this show, we do have a conversation beforehand. It's none of this is set up. Matt and I have not talked other than 5 minutes before the show. So to talk about opportunities to grow for people watching the show and so forth. It's not a pre-recorded, there's no setup and so forth. But I do want to get what's a topic they're comfortable talking about, or what's something that is needed right now today across business, leadership, management, those things. And so before we get into the meat of that, um, actually, let's just dive right into it, man. I was going to ask some other, pre-canned questions, but I think we passed that. So, one of the things that Matt said to me, I said, "Hey, what do we want to talk about on the show today?" And yeah, I'm assuming you're okay if I read this directly from the.
Bro, go for it. I love it.
Right now, many leaders aren't taking ownership over their need to invest in people. And you had some other commentary along with that, but can you expand on that for a minute when you're talking about, is that a right now thing? Is it an ongoing thing? You said right now people or leaders aren't taking ownership in their need to invest in their people. They put that weight on their people. So expand on it a little bit.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. There was a phase that I think a lot of businesses went through, and especially in automotive, we were very familiar with it, right? But where it was, we'll call it the early 2000s, early to mid 2010 ish, where it seemed
Mhm.
like dealers, right? It was like training, battle of the sales trainers, right? And it was like every other week, dealers were investing tons of money in sales trainer A, sales trainer B. If things didn't work the exact way they wanted, what's up, Leon Landers? If things didn't work exactly the way they wanted, they were like, okay, goodbye, Joe Verdi, hello, Grant Cardone, or vice versa. And so there was that phase. And then the challenge was, through the ups and downs of the economy, businesses started pulling back on training because when we had, here's a great example. I'll just bring it to the past 2 years. Supply
Okay.
chain shortages have made it so people have gotten a little more anxious about, like, I need to hurry up and buy this and that. Cars, we saw it with a lot. People were like, it started with Ford not being able to produce F-150s, and so all of a sudden the prices went through the roof. And the challenge was dealerships all of a sudden found themselves short staffed because they were like, oh my gosh, we're selling so many cars, we don't have enough staff, so they'd start hiring people. And because of the demand exceeding the supply, the salespeople didn't get any training. They didn't really understand, like, how do you build a relationship with a customer that's going to last and not only get a transaction today, but build a relationship so that the transactions become lifetime relationships, right? So that if I need something, I call Mike Phillips because Mike is my go-to for this. So now what I've seen in the last 6 to 8 months, one of the biggest things that I hear our clients say is they're like, man, I'm contracted with Auto Dealer University, so I do coaching through there. And I have a lot of
Okay.
videos on their platform too. So I would encourage anybody to go check them out. Um, but like I hear a lot of dealers going, okay, over the past 8 months, we've hired a bunch of people, but we never trained any of them because really all they had to do was fill out paperwork. And so what's happened is the COVID epidemic, instead of taking during that time during the pandemic, instead of taking that time to educate and equip and set their salespeople up for success, they were just trying to figure out how to keep up. And they were, to be fair, I think a lot of businesses were making larger profits because they could, because they were like, hey, we don't know if we're gonna get more supply. So they had these big profits. They didn't have to put in the work of training people, but now business is normalizing, whether it's automotive, real estate, or retail. And every business is saying the same thing. Holy cow, I don't know. Most of my people don't know how to sell. But the challenge is now that the business is normalizing, so are their margins. And so now they're going, oh, I don't know if I should invest. I don't have the money to invest. And I'm super grateful because I had a client that I'm going to see in Canada next week, and great dealership, just amazing. They do a really good job. But what they've been doing too is they've been doing event sales like monthly because they're like, event salespeople at least have more experience. But we all know that there are some challenges with that, right? Event salesperson comes in, they make a bunch of promises, things like that. And when they leave, the business is left to clean up the mess. So they said, hey, we want to equip our team better. We want to make sure that that's done well so that we don't have to keep bringing strangers in to talk to our customers and kind of push hard to sell a deal. We want to teach our salespeople how to build these relationships, how to get these sales. And because of that, they're bringing me in there for 4 days to spend with their team, and not just the salespeople, but the leadership too, so that we don't just train the salespeople and then detrain them at the desk. So businesses right now, the biggest area of opportunity that I see is educating and empowering their team to serve their customers well. What's happened during the time of not having that is leadership and management are just like, you go hook them and then we do all the work. And they can't do that. So they're stressed, they're overworked, they put in too much hours. These guys are having heart attacks left and right. And I think,
Let's not
yeah,
go there.
yeah, yeah. But listen, man, we've all had those stresses though. So yeah. So right now, I think the biggest area of opportunity is businesses need to invest in training their people. And I don't just mean sit them in front of a computer. Great examples, Auto Dealer University. There's two ways you can approach it. You can go watch this video, or you can say, hey, in today's sales meeting, we're going to watch this video and we're going to talk about it. We're going to discuss how we're going to use this strategy to grow our business. And if I'm honest, Mike, I would tell you probably 75% of businesses out there, when they do training, they tell their people to go watch it, and that's it. And they check a box. So and to me, that's a lack of leadership and more of a reactive management way of handling stuff.
So how do you fix that? What's something that you would say? I mean, when you're saying, hey, you go do this, is that just oh, we may have lost you. Are you still there?
Yeah. I'm still here. Yeah.
I was just going to say, how do you fix that? You said, well, rather than, hey, we're going to do this, is it as simple as that? Is it just, and this isn't exclusive to automotive. I think that's something that's important. Well, that's the lens that you see the world through, and often I see the world through, and so forth. It's a business leadership issue. It's not exclusive to one area, one vertical of business, or hey, this one thing is terrible. Like it goes anywhere that I think you're exchanging money for a service or goods, right? And
100%.
so that's one of the things to consider is, okay, well, how do you solve that? Because it's one thing for us to sit here on a show and say, well, hey, that's fine. You need to invest in your people. But right. But how does that look? Like, what's the first step? What would you say? Like, is it something that the leadership has to manage first? Is it something that are you waiting for salespeople or retail people to come to you and say, hey, I'm looking for this training? Like, what's the approach? What's the first step in your mind?
The first step, it's almost like Alcoholics Anonymous, man. The first step is admitting you got a problem, right? I think one of the challenges that we all have in leadership is we have an ego. Long time ago, a guy, Sean Gardner, said this to me. He said, ego stands for this: edges got out. And he was actually a Joe Verde sales trainer.
Repeat that. Edges got out.
Edges got out. And basically what
edges got out.
Yeah. And he was a Joe Verde sales trainer, may still be, I don't know. But when Sean explained that, what he said is this: he's like, we all have opportunities, God-given talents, God-given opportunities. But when we let our ego get in the way, we edge God out of it. We edge those talents out. We edge those abilities out. And we're not able to live up to our full capability. When we're in leadership, because the way a lot of people in every business get promoted into a leadership role is they're a top performer in sales. So someone says, oh, well, now you're right. What's the option? Well, they're doing great, but they want to make more money, or they want to feel more valuable. So their choices are go to a competitor or get promoted. And if there's no way to get promoted, they leave. So a lot of times a business goes, well, we don't want to lose Mike Phillips. He's strong. He's great at what he does. Let's just put him in this leadership role. Now, I'm only using you as an example because I know that you're better than that and you won't be offended by me using you. But let's say they go, all right, so we're going to throw Mike in a management role. Well, then the challenge is most of them don't get equipped on how to lead, right? And so it's not always, initially, it's not the fault of the manager or the leader, because nobody taught them what they didn't know. But once you've been in the role for a minute, the first thing you've got to do is go, I need to grow. I don't know how to lead well because no one taught me. We need to humble ourselves enough to go, someone needs to teach me the best way to lead people. And even if that's, I'm going to go tune into leadership podcasts. I'm going to listen to the Leadership Toolkit, or I'm going to go listen to Craig Groeschel and his stuff on leadership. I'm going to go listen to John Maxwell. Like, step one is humble yourself enough to go, I've got opportunity to grow. And if I really want my team to do well, I need to learn how to serve them better. That's step one.
Well, I completely agree with you. Here's one of the things, and you brought this up. You said, oh, okay, so top performer gets promoted into management. And that top performer, then one of the things that happens is often that top performer got promoted into management because there's a hole in management already because of prior bad management. And so they
Yes.
get promoted in, and the only model they have to follow is the crappy management that they had there before. And they go, well, I'm never going to do that. But then you run out of time to develop new skills, new tactics, new assets for yourself because you're so busy working in the business instead of being on the outside working on yourself to be able to work on the business. And so I think one of the things, and you said this similarly, and I've said this in past episodes and so forth of other shows that I've done. I think, and you're saying, okay, you got to humble yourself. For leaders, they really have to bruise their ego.
Yep.
That's what it takes. Because that's a hit to say, hey, I need help. And
Huge.
the reality, I think, for most is if you're willing to admit, okay, I'm going to take that hit. This is going to hurt, right? It's going to sting, but that's temporary.
Yeah, it's the pain, right? The pain of discipline versus the pain of regret, right? It's kind of like going to the gym. You know me, dude. I hate working out. I gained a whole bunch of weight. I lost a good amount of weight. Then I moved to Tennessee and I love hot chicken. And I gained a little bit of it back, more than I wanted to. But we started going to the gym. And so we've been there 4 times this week. And so yesterday, like I'm working,
Or more than me.
dude, it's super fun. No, I hate it. But like, so yesterday I'm working chest, shoulders, right? I'm doing all that and abs. Like, you know how it is. The next day you're sore, right? Well, today
Mhm.
we go and I'm working back and and all this stuff. And now my entire upper body hurts. I hate it. It's a pain that I hate. But you know what pain I hate more? I'm 47. I'll be 48 this year. The pain I'll hate more is being 55 and not being able to do it because I didn't do it when I could, right? And so I think that's a challenge that leaders, the problem is we don't see past our nose, right? So look at sales. Hey, what's up? Hey, Seuss, good to have you on, bro. So when you look at, let's just say, sales management and sales leadership, right? And you talked about bruising egos, but I think the other thing is we have the wrong perception of what it means to be the leader, right? We think of it as like I'm a boss, like Rick Ross, like I'm in
Right.
charge, I'm large and in charge. Now I'm the man. Now I can make the decisions. Now I can make the processes.
I got the
And sure,
title. What's next? I got the title. I got the belt.
yes, yes, and that's it. But what it really is this, dude. It's okay. Now I have 10 people whose livelihood depends on what I choose in this moment. Like, oh, whoa, that's a whole different weight. The gravity of that, like when I sucked at sales, and God, I was horrible for a minute. When I got in the business first started, I was terrible. And I had a boss who called me and Bart, and literally in one of my books, I read about him in the beginning. He's the reason I wrote it. Bart said to me this. He goes, listen, there's me and a buddy of mine who I won't name. We were both failing miserably. We did judo and jujitsu together. All we did all day was punch each other in the arm and wrestle and wait for customers to come in. So he says this to me. He goes, listen, you, and we'll just call this other person, we'll call him Mark, because that's not his name, even remotely close. He goes, listen, you and Mark both are both sucking, and you guys are sharing an office because I need to hire somebody who doesn't suck, but I haven't gotten rid of you two. And he goes, so here's the deal. He goes, one of you has
That's
potential.
abrasive.
Yeah. And he goes, and he said this, he goes, one of you has potential. The other one's Mark. And he goes, so
Oh
here,
my
and I was like,
gosh.
okay, I have potential. Okay. Phew. Right. And he goes, but here's the deal. He goes, it was fall. It was like November. And he goes, here's the thing. Our Christmas party's next month. And I'm not going to have, he goes, I'm sure you go home and you tell your family it's all my fault. I don't run the right ads. I don't put enough in trade-ins. I don't work hard. I don't this and that. He goes, I'm sure you blame me. He goes, but I'm not going to get mean mugged at the, whatever Christmas party. He goes, so here's what you're going to do if you want to continue to work here. And he goes, and I'm telling you this because I actually care about you. He goes, this was at like 5 o'clock at night. So he had this talk with me right before I was going home for the day, right? So it couldn't poison the whole day. He goes, you're going to write down every single thing you did today on the half-hour mark. And then you're going to take it home and have your wife sign it. And then you're going to bring it back tomorrow. If you do that, you still have a job. If you're not willing to, pack your stuff, go home now. That was it. And
Wow.
here's the thing that you don't know. So I'm, 21. I started in the business when I was 18, 19. So this is the third dealership I've worked at, fourth dealership I've worked at in 3 years in Kalamazoo, Michigan. There was nowhere else to go. If I failed out of this, if I failed out of the store, I wasn't getting hired again. So I had a choice to do that. Now, here's the crazy part. Bart, my former manager, has now become a friend. He's a guy, I love him with all my heart. Just, he was a great mentor. But
he sounded rough at the beginning.
It sounded like it. But the reality was that in talking to him, he said, here's the thing, man. Like, I can't sit here. Basically, he was saying, I can't sit here and watch you fail and not take responsibility for yourself. He said, I care too much about you to let you do that, period. And it's funny because he also was the one that I was selling used cars. And back then I just wasn't wired for it, man. I couldn't get around the fact that, yeah, it's a used car. So not everything's perfect, right? I'm like, no, spend 10 grand to make this 10 grand car perfect, right? Like, my mind didn't work that way. So he also saw opportunity to move me into the new car side back then, which is where I needed to be. And he said, hey, I'm going to move you over here to Nissan. And that's how my career started going the right direction, all because Bart cared enough to really move me in the right direction. And what I learned from that and from subsequent training and education on being a leader was this. You have to care more about the success of your team than they do for themselves, which is why you and I have talked about this before. One of the things that ticks me off more than anything is when managers go, it's not my job to motivate people. They have to come to work motivated. I'm like, if that's not your job, what the hell's your job, loser? Like, your only job is to make sure that you fix their headspace so that your job as a leader is to remove the obstacles. Because when a customer comes in to buy, if we talk automotive, but really anything, car shopping, house shopping.
If they're coming to exchange funds for goods or services. They hate
the process. The process sucks. No matter, look, oh, we're for the people. Sure you are. Everybody hates the process. So here's the reality. If they're willing to take a step into your business, they see the thing they want to buy. Your only job is to get the stuff out of the way that's blocking them from getting to it. That's it. So now if I'm a sales manager, general manager, if I'm a business owner and I've got a team of people, all of those people have something they want to accomplish. And they're working with me, not because they go, ooh, I love Matt, I want to work with Matt. I mean, maybe, but the reality is they go, I want to buy this house. I want to buy this car. I want to take my husband or wife to Hawaii. I want to do this for my kids. So my job as the leader is to actually spend time with my team to go, what's important to you? How do I help you accomplish it? Now, the reality is 90% of the things that people say are important to them. I want to buy a home. I want to buy a car. I want to do this. It takes financial resources. So now I have to do the math to show them, here's the roadmap to get there. And in order to accomplish these things, here's how we're going to do it, right? But leaders, like going back to what you said, they don't want their ego bruised, and they won't humble themselves enough, to use a wonderful analogy that anyone who has ever looked at a Bible will understand. A good leader needs to learn how to wash feet. That's it. It's it. It's all. It's not rocket science. You want to be a good leader? Wash feet. Because you know why? Then your people will go like, why would you do this? And because I care about you, because I care so much about seeing you succeed. And if we really believe that, if my goal is to help everyone on my team succeed, by default, dude, I'm making a ton of money. If every one of my salespeople's killing it and they're getting paid a lot, I'm their leader. I get a percentage of it. I'm going to make money. But the problem is, oh, you're not doing enough. And I got a house payment, so I need salespeople that can perform. Well, maybe spend 15 minutes a day doing a one-on-one with them instead of scrolling Facebook for your next real estate purchase, Jack.
Well, and I think one of the keys is leadership, depending on who you ask, right? John Maxwell says leadership is influence, right? But how do you get influence, right? That seems like a really simple thing. He says, oh, leadership is influence. This is all you have to do. And we all agree with it. Everyone goes, yeah, I agree. And don't get me wrong, I love John Maxwell, one of the best leadership speakers, authors, trainers in the world, in my opinion, if not the best.
Agreed.
But then the question becomes, how do you gain influence?
You pay him $13,999 to come to the workshop.
Well, yeah, but then, so I think that comes down to the second part of your sentence, which I didn't even share yet. We talked at the beginning, we said real leaders aren't taking ownership of their need to invest in people. But your second piece was a statement that said leaders have to invest time. They have to invest resources. They have to invest in learning to be a better leader. So which one of those is most important, Matt? Time, resources, or teaching themselves?
Yes. Here's
If
the
you
thing.
had to pick one.
If I had to pick one, I would say this: educating themselves. And I would say that. But there is one risk, and that is falling into analysis paralysis. Like you can't see it, but behind me, over here, maybe if I do this, it'll
Here, maybe I
go
could
for
hold
an
on,
hour.
hold on. I could,
The bookshelf back there. No, that was just me
here,
because my camera's tracking. But
there you
that
go. I
bookshelf
got you.
back there is filled with books, including right in front of me, the latest, right, from Brunson, Unlock the Secrets Playbook, 600 and something page workbook. We can get into this analysis paralysis, education paralysis, where we get so inundated with like I got to learn more. I got to learn more. We may never put it into practice. So I would say the most important thing is leaders need to learn, because I think if you start learning, you'll realize you've got to invest the time and you've got to invest the
Absolutely.
resources, right? So it's like
Love it.
once I start reading and grasping or listening to a podcast that goes, oh crap, that's possible. I heard somebody say this. They were like, when if you're helping someone learn, the first thing that they have to see is what you're telling them is possible. And then the second realization they have to realize is this: oh, that's possible for me. See, once they see it's possible, then it opens them up to, well, if Mike can do it, gosh, maybe I can do it. And then once they believe that, they go, well, the only way to find out is to try. Right. So if I know Mike can do it, and I think it's possible that I can do it, then maybe I should listen to Mike, because Mike can show me how to do it. But the problem is most leaders don't go to any kind of equipping unless their boss goes, hey, you're going to this. And then they go in there with a bad mindset, because even the owner doesn't know the value of equipping their team. So they don't know how to tell their people, here's the benefit to you by doing this, and here's how it's going to serve your team. And this is why you should want to be part of this. And to me, I'm a believer that I go, do you want to? And if they go, no, I go, sweet, then enjoy your new job somewhere else.
Yeah, I was going to say that's one of the keys is there's a difference in attitude between I get to and I've got to versus an attitude of learning versus an attitude of I have to go do this. We got a couple comments. One of the things Mike Ashley shared from Leadership with Mike, who we can later have a discussion on how he stole my YouTube name, says he says I've gotten the most influence by being most real, someone my staff can connect with and relate to. And I think that's really, really powerful. And it's spot on, Mike. And I think, and then Ben complimented you when I said, hey, which one of these three is most important? You said, yes. Ben says the perfect answer.
I love Mike's hair, by the way, because I match Ashy. I got the matching cut.
Yes, absolutely. That's the Mike Ashley look. So when we're talking about the three of those, it's like the triangle of leadership investment. You could copyright that and put it on something, right? But the thing is, we could sit and try and dissect which is the most important, but all of them are the most important. And when you're saying, okay, well, you have to teach yourself, how does your team ever know that? How do they ever know the mountains that you've climbed or the barriers that you removed for them if you're not investing in your time in them, with them? You said it early on with, well, you got to know people. The only way that you know people, the only way you get to know anybody is through, a dialogue, having a dialogue, excuse me, having a two-way conversation and, communicating back and forth. Hey, what's important to you? Wow, that's great that's important to you. I think it's fantastic. And then for a leader to, once they know that, be able to support it. If they don't know, they can't support it, right? If they, and so all the investing in yourself is huge. Investing your time is huge. The one I think that is often hardest for leaders and especially businesses is investing resources, because and when I'm it's easy to say, oh no, we'll put all our people behind it because they're willing to invest your time. They're willing to invest your time, right?
Yes,
they're willing to have you invest your money. But I think that is a difficult one when it comes to investing resources, because generally when we're saying investing resources, we're talking funds, right?
We're talking a good amount of funds too. Usually, if it's anything worth its salt, it's usually not cheap. And I think the challenge is this: like you and I've talked about things like this before, right? A business will spend thousands of dollars a month on pay per click, but they won't spend $100 a month on educating one of their people, right? It's like, okay, you will spend $10,000 a month to generate leads, but you won't spend $1 to teach your people how to handle it. That to me is idiocy. Like, that's not just a like, gosh, that doesn't make sense. No, you're an idiot. If you're spending 10 grand a month on leads and you spend $0 teaching your people how to equip them or how to handle them, you're a moron. Like, that's just honesty. And if it hurts your feelings, whoever watches this later, it probably should. Now, the good news is this, though. You don't
Get
have
ready
to
to get
sit
your
there.
ego bruised.
Yeah. And you don't have to sit there in your hurt feelings and go to your safe space and cry about it. What you can do is act like a full grown man or woman and go, you know what? As much as that bothers me, I really need to take that to heart. Like, and here's the thing that I wish I would have known this more when I was earlier in leadership. I wish someone would have said to me, Matt, if you really want to feel fulfilled in your role, if you really want to experience success, you have to care more about your people than you do right now. I had a guy named Mark that worked for me.
The real
Oh,
Mark.
the real Mark. Oh, and I don't want to forget to say this, because we talk about, you
Yeah.
need to know and you need to learn, right? And there's this old saying, knowledge is power, right? That's a lie, because there are a lot of brilliant people that have no power because they do nothing with the knowledge. And this is why we need to spend time with our people to get to know them so that we can use that knowledge to propel them forward.
It takes some
That's what we've
action.
got to do. Yeah. And so the real Mark sat down with me when I was his manager, and he said, he looked like Jack Nicholson, which was great. And I was 24 and he was 50. And he said, Matt, he goes, Matt, and he even sounded like Nicholson, which was great. He's like, Matt, here's the deal, man. He goes, which is a bad Jack Nicholson impression. I apologize to you, Jack. But he goes, Matt, listen, man, I love working for you. He goes, and you always take care of me. He goes, I know you're younger in this. He goes, but you've got a lot of potential, man. And I was like, oh, thanks. Because his nickname was literally Jack, because of how he looked at me. Thanks, Jack.
That's
And he
funny.
goes, that wasn't a compliment. And I'm like, what? Like, I thought telling somebody they had potential was a compliment. He goes, what that means is you have a lot of talent that you're not using. You have a big gap of unused talent. And he goes, and you got to do something about it. And I was like, ouch. Because I felt frozen, because I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what I wasn't doing well. I didn't understand where I was missing the mark with my talent. Like, I thought, well, I'm doing this stuff I got taught, right, up to now.
Sure.
And so
Or
I'm
what
like,
you had seen before.
yeah. And so for me, like, to have somebody on my team, like, I just love that he was willing to come to me and say, I need you to lead me better. Like, here's a guy twice my age with twice my experience, but he knew I was capable of leading him better. And I was capable of doing a better job for him and the others on the team. And to me, I was like, wow, that's amazing. I wouldn't have went to my manager and said that, because I would have been too big of a chicken. Number one, when I was in sales. But number two, I don't know that most of them would have cared enough to say, oh gosh, then let me invest time in you. And so when he said that to me, at first I'm frozen. So I'm like, I don't know. And then I was just like, well, seems like the logical thing to do is ask a question. And I'm like, Jack, how can I do this for you? How can I be a better leader of this department and serve you better? Because I honestly, I don't know what I'm not doing. And then he started, he was like, well, the daily one-on-ones, if we would go over A, B, and C. And I'm like, oh gosh, it's amazing that if you actually talk to your people, they'll tell you, this is what I need from you. And he flat told me, he goes, what I don't need from you is you asking me every hour what I've got working. What I
Yeah.
don't
What'd you
need
get
from
done?
you is asking me, did you hear from Mr. and Mrs. Jones? Did you hear from, like, he goes, what I need from you is to, like, in the morning, invest the time in me to go through the stuff that you need to know for the day, and then just be there when I need you. And I'm like, okay. And at first I thought of it like, well, listen, I'm not like video on demand manager. Like, no, I run this department, right? My mind was still a little bit in that mindset, because I'm young, I'm promoted early, because I stopped sucking real bad. So I finally got an opportunity. So I had an ego, and but it was interesting because now great example, the dealership that I'm going up to deal with in Canada, in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, Sunday night I fly in, I come home Friday morning. And out of the 4 days there, on the fourth day, it's being spent with leadership doing two things. One, going over how they can hold successful sales meetings for their people, 13 weeks that are recycled 4 times a year on these
Mhm.
key topics. And then the other thing that we're talking about is here's how you hold a successful one-on-one. And do you know what it consists of? When you spend 15 minutes with your person going, talk to me about what you did yesterday. Let's go through yesterday, our wins, our losses, how we could tune it up. What is your game plan for today? What are your appointments? What's going on? Let's get today. Let help me understand what you've got mapped out. And then the third thing is this. What do you need from me in order to be successful? What help
That's
do you need? Do
strong.
you need me to call somebody for you? What TO calls can I make? What are you struggling? Oh, you're struggling with prospecting. So would it be helpful to you then if I just spend a few minutes with you? I make a couple of those calls, show you how that like script works to get these referrals so that you can see it in action. Would that be helpful? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's do that together. Like, so yesterday, today, and what do you need from me in order to be successful? If we'll just
So
ask and
strong.
then listen with the intent to understand, not just listen, but with the intent to understand, we can move the right direction with our people. But survey managers, ask them how many of them do a daily one-on-one. Ask them the first question: how often should a daily one-on-one happen? Daily.
Daily.
How often do you do it? Oh, I do my daily one-on-ones maybe like once or twice a week. Like, oh, it hurts me to look at you right now when you say I do a daily thing twice a week, but it's how it goes.
Then some of them you got to be able to justify. You take the word daily out. I do one-on-ones.
Bingo. That's why I
Okay.
have this
Look,
like muscle vein sticking out on the side of my head that you can sometimes
so
see. It's my
I want to touch on
frustration. Like,
something you
oh,
said here just a minute ago, because I think that is one of the most powerful and underutilized questions that any leader can ask their people. What can I do for you? How can I serve you? Like, they don't come right out and ask that, right? A lot of times it's implied. A lot of times oh, well, this is how it's supposed to go, right? But I don't think enough people, just my opinion, look right at their people that are following them. And this could apply to anything. Again, when Matt and I get into these conversations, we talk a lot about automotive, but you look at, it doesn't matter, restaurant business, real estate, the retail stores, YouTube. We have like Mike Ashley's on YouTube, and I think a powerful question, like when you're approaching the people that follow you, that are wanting to learn from you, that are wanting to grow from you. We don't often just look them right in the eye and say, "Hey, what can I do for you? How can I help make you successful? How can I serve you today? What do you need from me?
bingo.
What do you need from me?" And when the amazing thing, because I've used this practice for a long time in business. We'll wrap up a training meeting. I do twice a week training meetings, not daily, Matt, but be wrapping up a training meeting and say, hey, what do you need from me? And the first few times, I remember thinking back years ago when I was an early on sales manager and learning this stuff. And I remember asking that question. Everyone looks at you dumbfounded, and there's no answer.
Mm-hmm.
And the risk you run is that you don't ask the question again. You stop asking, or you get numb to it, and it needs to be real things. It's not like, hey, what do you need from me? We all need Starbucks this afternoon. Okay, sure you do, right? But sometimes that's really what they need. If you invest a little bit in that team, in the coffee run or lunch or whatnot, sometimes that is enough to put people over the edge. And the amazing thing is they'll tell you, and we want to run over it because we don't take it seriously, right? Or they don't
Truth.
answer at all, and then we don't answer. We stop asking the question because it's like, oh well, gosh, that's uncomfortable,
Or when you
right?
say, what do you need from me? Like, oh, nothing, I'm good. And then you realize, okay, Mike always says nothing. He's good. So I quit asking Mike. And it's
That's
like,
when you move to a one-on-one. That's when you need to sit down face to face and sometimes have those really direct conversations. And I think one of the things that has become difficult in recent years is when you have a direct conversation with somebody, it can come off as abrasive because people aren't accustomed to having direct conversations.
especially in today's
So,
day and age, like not for nothing, but people's feelings matter, right? And here's the thing, they matter, they just don't matter to everybody else.
right.
Right. Like, I mean, they matter and they should matter to other people. One of the things that we do need to look at as leaders, and this is a question that is a hard one to ask, but I think if every leader would just, the next meeting they have, they ask this question, it'll give them a good starting point. And that's, hey, as your leader in this role, how am I doing? How am I doing for you? If you were to rate me, listen, there's no, I'm not going to sit here and defend anything. My goal is to be the best leader possible. And the truth is, I don't know that I'm doing that. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how am I doing for you? 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. And no matter what they say, don't defend yourself. Set the ego aside. After they answer, follow up with this and help me understand why do you feel that way? So how am I doing?
Here's another suggestion.
Why do you feel that way?
Here's another suggestion. And so I don't get lost in it. Michael Ashley shared another one. Another comment over here says, it's stupidity, but as managers and staff members, you must know that no one is coming to save you. You have to look after yourself and you have to educate yourself. Now it's one thing, I'm going to expand on that for a second. And then I want to come back to remind me about your rating question too, so that we don't lose it. Cause I just didn't want to lose the comment over here. If everybody had that mentality, yes, we want to have a team mentality, but if we also looked, how can I grow as an individual to be able to contribute to this team? How can I grow as an individual to contribute to the greater good and so forth? And if we really realize that, I think a lot of people, from staff members to middle management to leaders and managers, people think, oh, somebody's going to step up and provide this one thing for me so that I can be successful. Yeah, you know who's going to do it? You. It's you. That's the secret, right? That you're the one that is going to step up and do those things. So fast forward to when you're asking, here's something else I've done that's successful. And I didn't even consider this until you just brought it up, said, hey, how am I doing as your leader? And John Maxwell, who I mentioned earlier, I think is absolutely fantastic. He has out there, and I don't know what it's called. I'll find it and I'll link it in the comments or whatnot, or in the description of the video after we're done, or in the podcast. But he has a 5 levels of leadership test. If you're familiar with his book, 5 Levels of Leadership, like first you lead by title, and then it goes by permission, and so on and so forth. You go up the ladder. And as you invest more in certain people, one of the things that I think is really valuable to understand, and he describes well in this book, is that you're not on the same level with everybody. Some may think you're a kick-ass leader and you walk on water, and some may be like, yeah, he's all right. He's great, but yeah, I mean, nice guy, but he could do better, or she could do better. And so one thing that he offers, and like I said, I'll have to find it, is a 5 levels of leadership survey. And you can give it to your staff anonymously. So you give it to them, you say, hey, fill this out, right? Fill out this survey. It's a report card for me. And they can all put, what you do well, what you need to improve on, that kind of stuff, without a lot of comments. It's a lot of check boxes. And once they do that, it gives you an idea of what level of leadership you're on with that individual. Likewise, you as a leader take the same test for your people to see where you think that you're at with them. And in which case, then you compare the two and see if you're actually in touch with your people or not. And I think that's a really powerful way to do that as well. And I love the direct approach. Like I said, Matt, I think it's fantastic, but I do think I would just push back on this one. You push back on me on a lot of stuff. I'll push back on it a little bit, in the sense that if you ask people directly, because again, it can come off as abrasive, especially if people aren't used to hearing that direct feedback. And they think that, like, if you ask them, hey, how am I doing as your leader? And be honest here, one of the first things, right, that goes off is that flight or fight
or flight. Yep.
And they say to themselves, oh no, it's a trap.
Yeah,
you're doing great.
He's a great
leader.
Looking for a reason to fire me, man. That's why he's asking, because he doesn't think that I think he's a good leader. So I better say something to stroke his ego. Well, and so full disclosure, when I talk to leadership about, because it's a process of starting this, right? If we're being honest, 90% of people aren't doing it. They're not leading well.
Sure,
that's just it.
They're leading more by title than by example. They're leading.
Yeah,
more
and I would say, I just say listen, if you're watching this, you're not leading at all. You're managing, right? You're reactive. A problem comes, you put out a fire. You are not a leader. You are a manager. If that hurts your feelings, good. Do something about it. Change or bitch in the comments, one of the two. But I would encourage you to change instead. But here's the thing. Like when I talk to managers, I'm like,
or say nice things in the comments.
But please, yeah, do that too. Or create controversy, right? I hated it that you went bald, Matt. I liked your hair. Me too, but I don't have it. So here's the thing: when I talk to managers, like, how do you start this though, right? Because you can't go back in time and undo the poor habits you've instilled, the bad things you've done. You just can't go undo it. And I learned this a long time ago. I learned to put it in practice and tried it, and it worked. It works when you've got veteran people on your team that think you shouldn't be in the role you're in. And it works with new people who have been poisoned by others. And it works with good people, which is 80% of your team, that you just haven't been leading well. And you pull them all in together because, we say, well, let's do daily one-on-ones. You go to your team and you say, hey, I'm going to do a daily one-on-one meeting because I care about you guys and this is going to be good. And they're like, yeah, right. You want to do a meeting every day to police my actions and blah, 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 right? So here's how this meeting sounds to set the stage. You pull your entire team into a meeting. You go, listen, I called you guys in here, right? Like, I bet you're wondering why I called this meeting. And you say, listen, I called all of you in here for one reason, and that is this: to apologize. Because they hired me to be a good leader. And if I'm being honest, after a hard look in the mirror, I think that I have a lot of areas of opportunity where I can serve you guys better. And so here's what I want to do. Moving forward, I want to figure out the best way I can serve you in the role that I'm in. Because if you win, I win by default. And so here's the thing. What I'd like to do is I'd like to sit down with each of you one-on-one. I want to go over all the areas that you think are going good and all the areas that you think I need to tune up some stuff. And I want to do this in a team setting so none of you feel singled out as I bring this up, because it's not about you guys as much as it's about what I haven't been doing right. And so I owe you an apology. Now, that being said, in order for me to serve you well, I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need you to be honest with me. And I want to do that in a one-on-one setting, because if there are things you need to say to me that maybe no one else needs to hear, or maybe would be embarrassing to me in front of others, I want to do it in that kind of setting because I think it's better for both of us. So over the next couple of days, here's what I want to commit to you. Number one, I'm going to sit down with each of you for 15 minutes. And I'm going to ask you a couple questions. A, what do you think's going good right now? For you, for me in this role, and for our whole team, what's one thing that's going good? And then I'm going to ask you, what's one step that I can take in my role to make things better? And then we'll flesh out a game plan for how to make that happen. But I'd like to start there. And then in order to grow, would you all agree this can't just be a one-time meeting and then I forget about it and then go back to being who I was? And they'll say, yeah. And I say, great. Then in that case, what I'd like to do is continue on so that each day I want to empower you guys to do what we hired you to do. And I know I chase you around all the time asking questions like this. What do you got working? What do you got working? How many of you guys are tired of that? How many of you guys are tired of being micromanaged by me? Right? So you ask them the questions you know the answer to. Hey, how many of you hate being micromanaged by me? How many of you hate me being over your shoulder? Right? I've come to realize that's not the best leadership strategy. Right? So notice in this whole meeting, I'm apologizing to them at first. I'm owning my failures. And then I say, so here's the thing. Moving forward, I want to empower you. So each day, I'm going to get together with each of you in the morning for a quick 15 minutes, and we're going to cover three things. We're going to cover yesterday, so I can get up to speed on things there that are working. We're going to talk about your game plan for the current day. And then I'm going to ask you this question: what do you need from me in order to be successful? And so I want to do that with you so that you can tell me what you need so I know how to serve you well. I truly believe if we do this, it'll be better for everybody here. But while we're in a group setting, let me ask you this. How does that sound to you? Now, here's the deal. You're going to have some people that are like, oh man, that's great. Some of them are going to be like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, but brothers, we'll pipe up. It is what it is. But here's the reality. If we don't ask these questions, we don't have this meeting, we just bumble through life thinking we're doing great. And we're probably not. But people smarter than me have said a lot of things. But one of the things somebody smarter than me said was this: you're not a leader if nobody's following you. So just because you got a manager title, leader title, it doesn't make you a leader. If your staff isn't actually following your direction, if you find yourself often having to reiterate and retrain the same things because nobody's bought into it, you ain't a leader, man. You ain't leading anybody. But the other thing is this: if people are following you, it's typically because of one of two reasons: fear or fascination. It's either fear or fascination. Look at Adolf Hitler. People followed him out of fear, man. I mean, the guy was horrifying, right? He'd just kill you if you go against him.
Sure.
Look at Jesus. There was no threat. People followed him out of fascination. They were like, wait a minute. I've got 613 oral and written laws that I've been told I've got to adhere to. Otherwise, I'm not good enough. And this guy just told me I'm good enough. Well, hey, explain that to me more, right? Like, be a leader right now and think about, just envision in your head what it would look like if you went to your team and said, hey, you know what I realized? I haven't told you how important you are to me. And I just want to say thank you for being on this team. They're gonna be like, okay, weirdo, whatever. Like, right? That's probably what's going on in their head. Like, no, listen,
It's because they're not used to it.
Bingo.
They're not used to people don't hear that. They hear that it's like the beatings will continue till morale improves. Right? We're just gonna hammer it, and eventually things will get better.
2 + 2 is 5. Say it.
Yeah. So no, you're absolutely spot on. So we're coming up on the hour here, Matt. So you and I could. The reality is we could run this show and we could go for like 4 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, so you guys just tune back in around 5. We'll still be going. It's cool.
Yeah. We'll be here. No, but for real, I want to try and keep this to right about an hour so that it's at least some bite-sized stuff. Man, you brought a ton of fire, a ton of really good stuff. I mean, things like talking about the three steps to be able to do good one-on-ones, just talking about, the different aspects of investing time with people, investing in yourself. Like, I feel like it's been a really good conversation, man. And I just really appreciate you for, first off, and again, I'm going to share this a little bit. I appreciate you for being you, because I was really sitting and debating, do I start another leadership podcast on some of the stuff that I've done? And, Matt was like, absolutely, yes. Like, you got to do it. You got to figure it out. And going through the iterations of, okay, well, what am I going to call the show? What's the premise behind it? What's the layout? How can I bring the most value to people to be able to have somebody tune in and watch and get really good information from different folks? Is it just me? Is it other people? Pardon me. So, leading up to this, and I mean, that, like, literally this whole brainchild's been a couple months in the, like, it was a fleeting thought, but then to get really serious about it and say, okay, what can I really do to bring value without you investing some time in me? I would not have relaunched this. I don't think I would have. And so I just want to tell you, thank you for that, because, and so it's awesome that you are my first guest. I know we talked about it. I said, I'll have Matt as my first guest. Right.
I love it.
But because I know your background, I know you're caring, and I just, like, it's been a really good conversation. I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you too, brother. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your first guest, just to even be a guest on the show. I love the stuff that you share on social. I love the way that you just try and help people become better versions of themselves. Hey, Big Wheel Bandit, thanks for listening.
What up, PJ?
I will say, if I could say one more thing, dude, I know, like, those that have known me for a while, like, man, I love the show. I love the flash. I love all the big, cool catchphrases that get people excited. But here's what I've learned, especially over the past few years. And this is why I want to hit it at the end, is this: if you want to lead well, you have got to learn to be led. And what I mean by that is you've got to be humble. There is somebody better than you that you can learn from. Even if you're crushing it, man, even if you're killing it, the only way to keep growing is to find somebody you can learn from. And here's the cool thing: you don't have to look very hard. There's always somebody that knows a little something more about a certain area. The challenge that a lot of leaders fall into is they go, I have to become a disciple of John Maxwell, or I have to become a disciple of Gary V, or, pick your favorite, Grant or Joe. All of them have good things to offer. Now, you could get confused by chasing everything that all of them offer, but the best leaders go, here's what I've learned from this person. Like with Zig Ziglar, the one thing that has always stuck with me, there are two things that stuck with me for years. One is this. He said, you don't wait till you're smelly to take a bath. And he goes, and it's the same with your attitude. You got to, he goes, you bathe every day so you don't get smelly. He said, you got to start your day doing something that will make your attitude feel better and lift you up every day to avoid stinking thinking, right? That was his deal.
Yep.
The other thing I took away from Zig Ziglar was when he was with a Cutco knife salesman, I think it was Cutco. And the guy was struggling to sell and Zig was on a ride along with him. He goes, well, let me ask you this. What do you like the most about your knives? And he goes, I don't have them. They're $500 knives. He's like, how can you be passionate about and sell something that you don't even think is worth investing in for yourself, right? So it's like, to me, believing in what you do enough that you would do it for yourself makes a big deal. So there are things I took away from Zig. But one of the things that I took away from, let's say, Tony Robbins, for example, Tony Robbins said you'll find true fulfillment in life when you actually learn how to, when you're able to give to others, right? He said this, you'll find true fulfillment when you trade expectation for appreciation. So when it comes to interacting with people, appreciating what you have with them rather than setting expectations that they never agreed to will help you avoid being let down. And then you take Joe Verdi, and I learned the best prospecting words in the whole world from him. And then you go to Grant Cardone, and man, I learned the best way to handle like an initial objection from somebody from Grant when they're like, well, it's a lot of money. These 3 words from Grant, always agree first, right? Agree and then ask them to buy. So it's like, if you really want to be good as a leader, humble yourself to go, you know what, when it comes to this area, I could learn more. So let me find who's good at that. When it comes to that area, I could learn more. Let me find who's good at that. When it comes to doing podcasts and getting all this stuff flowing and working right, if you want to do that, Mike Phillips knows how to do that. Like there's a guy who could help lead you the right direction, right? So I hope, if you take nothing else away from anything I said today, anybody who's watching, I just hope you'll do this. Humble yourself enough to realize that you've got a lot of unused talent that you could grow. That's it.
Absolutely. Powerful words. Thank you, Matt. I really I appreciate you in so many ways. So for everybody else, I'm going to see if I can figure this deal out. There we go. All right. So thank you, everybody. That brings us to a close for this Leadership Toolkit podcast. I appreciate you all very much for tuning in. If you gained something out of this show, do me a favor, click the like button, throw the thumbs up, click the subscribe button if you're on YouTube, share the video, whatever platform you're on. I would appreciate, get the word out, because the plan is have more great guests and more great information, just like from my good friend Matt here. And come back again next week. It's going to be every Wednesday, 12:05 Mountain Time. That's 2:05 Eastern. And rather than figuring out all the other time zones, whatever time that is in your time zone, I look forward to seeing you back here next week for another great leadership podcast right here on the Leadership Toolkit. We'll talk to you soon, everybody, and I hope to see you next week.